What childhood rule from your parents seemed ridiculous until you realized its genius as an adult? When I was growing up, my parents had this weird rule that my sister and I thought was absolutely ridiculous. No name calling. And I don't just mean the obvious stuff like stupid or idiot. I mean any negative descriptor aimed at a person. We couldn't say someone was annoying or selfish or even rude. My dad would immediately stop us and make us rephrase. It drove me insane, especially in middle school when Miranda would take my stuff without asking. And instead of being able to call her a thief or inconsiderate, I had to say, when you take my things without asking, it makes me feel disrespected. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds coming from a 12-year-old? My friends' parents let them call each other whatever they wanted. I remember sleeping over at Becky's house and being shocked when she and her brother screamed, "You're such a jerk," at each other, while their mom just sighed and told them to keep it down. My parents would have had us sitting at the kitchen table for an hour-long discussion about feelings and respect. This rule followed us everywhere. Even at other people's houses, my dad would give us the look if we slipped up. I hated it with a burning passion. Fast forward to me at 24, living with my boyfriend Gerald. We'd been together for 2 years and things were getting serious. We talked about marriage, kids, the whole deal. But we fought. A lot. Normal couple stuff, bills, chores, scheduling, but our fights would spiral out of control so fast. One minute we'd be talking about whose turn it was to clean the bathroom, and the next we'd be bringing up things from 6 months ago. The worst part was that once Gerald called me something, lazy, selfish, whatever, I couldn't let it go. I'd fixate on it for days. He thinks I'm selfish. Is that really what he thinks of me? Does he really see me that way? It would eat at me until I brought it up again, starting the whole cycle over. One night we had this massive blowout. It started because I forgot to pick up something he needed for work. He was stressed. I was tired. And suddenly he was telling me I was irresponsible and never think about anyone but yourself. I lost it. I started screaming back, calling him controlling and impossible to please. We both said awful things. I drove to my parents' house at 11 p.m. crying so hard I could barely see the road. My mom let me in without a word and made tea while I sobbed at their kitchen table. When I finally calmed down enough to talk, I told them everything. All the awful things Gerald had said, all the awful things I'd said back. My dad sat there quietly for a long time. Then he asked me, "What do you actually like about Gerald?" The question caught me off guard. I started listing things. He's funny, thoughtful, supportive, ambitious. Dad nodded and said, "And what do you think Gerald likes about you?" I gave a similar list. My independence, my creativity, how I can make him laugh. Then Dad asked, "Do you think Gerald actually believes you're irresponsible and selfish?" I started to say yes, but then stopped. Did he? Or was he just angry in the moment? Dad said something I'll never forget. When you label someone, you stop seeing them and only see the label. That's why your mom and I never let you kids call each other names. Not because the words themselves are bad, but because once you put someone in a box, it's hard to let them out. It hit me like a truck. Every time Gerald called me selfish, I became nothing but selfish in his eyes. Every time I called him controlling, he became nothing but controlling in mine. We were creating these caricatures of each other that were getting harder and harder to see past. I went home the next morning and Gerald and I had the longest, most painful, most honest conversation of our relationship. We agreed to try something. No labels, no name calling, not even in the heat of the moment. When upset, we'd only talk about actions and how they made us feel. It was hard. So much harder than I expected. We both slipped up constantly, but something strange happened. Our fight stopped escalating. Without the labels, we could actually hear each other. When you forgot the thing I needed, I felt like my needs weren't important to you, is so much easier to respond to than, "You're selfish and irresponsible." 3 years later, Gerald and I are married. We still fight sometimes, but they're different now. Last month, Gerald and I had dinner with my parents. My dad asked how we were doing, and I told him about a disagreement Gerald and I had resolved earlier that week. Dad smiled and said, "You know, your mom and I have been married for 35 years and we've never once called each other a name." I looked at my mom in disbelief. "Never? Not even during your worst fights?" She shook her head. "That's the thing about fights. They end, but words stick. Why would I want to put a label on the person I love most in the world?"